Hello. Today we're going to talk about the issue of bias existing in artificial intelligence. We're going to go over a little bit of an introduction as well as where it currently states and recommendations to avoid disastrous consequences that could occur in the future. To begin with our introduction section, artificial intelligence is defined as computer programming that's designed to resemble human logic. It is worth noting that AI software is still in the early stages of its development cycle and its implementation into society as a whole. Now, there's AI and there's bias. Bias, in its definition, is unfair favoritism towards a certain individual or group. Whenever we put the two together, AI bias are discrete calculation errors that can result in grave consequences. In there's three main groups that are the overarching forms of artificial bias. That are association bias, outgroup homogeneity bias, and the last one is selection bias. We're going to talk mostly about selection bias in this presentation. To go into more detail on that, the selection bias then has three subgroups. It's survivor bias, advertising pre-screening bias, and observer exclusion bias. The last two are sets that are combined together because of their similarities. Now, whenever we look at our survivor bias, our first one, it's going to be that the longest lasting results falsely portray an overall picture. If we were to look at the short lasting results, if we were to look at the outliers, that's where the actual issue occurs. To give an example of that, a particularly notable case study is when the mathematician named Dr. Wald was hired to assess crash data for the United States Navy and suggest which parts of the military aircrafts needed to be reinforced. When presented with the data, there were several areas that stuck out as clear indicators of structural damage. A lot of his previous successors, the people that came before Dr. Wald, went and argued that the areas of a ship that continuously needed repair are the ones that need to be reinforced. But controversially and correctly, Dr. Wald actually came in and said it's not those aspects that we should look at, but we should look at the areas that were hit for planes that did not make it back to the airfield to actually be repaired. Those data, the statistics there suggest that there's more going on than just what the survivors may state. The survivors are saying that there's damage here, and that damage isn't something that will actually prohibit them from making their way back to the terminal. In contrast, it's actually the ships that are not making it back to the terminal. Those are where lives can be saved with the reinforcements, with the restructuring of those specific areas on the ship. And with that, survivor bias, it can be concluded as negative disregarded results actually hold the most valuable significance. Next up is going to be advertising pre-screening bias. That is where erroneous or wrong means of selecting survey data actually affects the outcomes on the other end of the AI search engines and the AI results. An example of that is if an individual were to request that an artificial intelligence software recommend the best possible career path for them, but they only provided the AI with results of people that were presently happy with their jobs. By doing that, we completely negate the amount of people that are currently unhappy, but they're working in a long-standing profession like doctorate students or craftsmen, and whenever they get to the eventual point, then they'll be happy. If the only happiness that can be measured are people that have been in certain industry for 10 years, then that the amount of people that are under that 10 years that are unhappy are going to be underrepresented in our AI algorithm. With that, we can conclude that advertising pre-screening bias It's when survey data incorrectly portrays the target populace. Lastly, observer exclusion bias. That is when there's ulterior motives leading to scientists hiding contradicting results. In it, an example is when 2014, when Amazon attempted to build a system that would automatically screen job candidates for them. Unfortunately, a lot of their previous hires were males and a predominantly male industry. And whenever they made this AI algorithm, it immediately determined that the best possible candidates for any job moving forward were male, because that's what the previous trend in the past represented. Now, thankfully with this one, there wasn't as much ulterior motives going on, because ultimately the red flags resonated clearly. However, that's not always the case. Scientists can overlook the possibility of false positives whenever the data that is returned to them as a result is actually what they want to receive. In addition, there's also a lot of benefits that can come from cutting corners in the actual implementation process and in the checking over the results. Because we're in this space race age of getting our way to the front of artificial intelligence, getting there before all the competitors are, there's a lot of possibilities that the scientists actually implementing this are just trying to get the system to appear accurate. So with that, those are a little bit of the implications. The significance is that all areas of life are affected by this. We are currently using AI in our web searches to develop insurance premiums as well in insurance companies. It's also becoming used for educational resources and financial reporting. Those are just 4 areas, but even those 4 are so crucial to our everyday ecosystem, our everyday society, that just having inaccurate results, incorrect findings in those 4 fields can completely derail the delicate balance of control between technology and society. So, in conclusion, there needs to be stricter government and industry regulations that are put in place. These will ensure that customers are informed about experimental nature of results. AI developers are acting ethically and morally. It'll also make sure to reduce the presence of AI bias, which we talked about so thoroughly. It's going to enhance the accuracy in the testing and release departments, and it's going to move America's technology industry together as a whole.